Well, hello everybody, and welcome to Snider's Offbeat and Overlooked. You know what is weird? Can you guys hear me now? I think something happens with when I hit go live and it just didn't go live. So apologies. I hope you guys are here. I think she may be running late. No, I am actually here, guys, and I was talking to the show and I thought it was going live, but apparently it wasn't. This is a new glitch that I've never had before. Glitchy woman, right? I think that's what Wayside Wade nicknamed me that one time. Although things have been, knock on wood, been going pretty smoothly until today. So here we are, starting over here with all my slides. Okay, so anyway, I'll just redo it. So welcome to the 25th episode of Tui Snider's Offbeat and Overlooked. I'm kind of excited. We actually made it to 25 episodes. I hope I get some more viewers here. It looks like let me see, did anybody leave? Oh, okay, so here we go. All right. Yes, here we go, Nicole. I was talking away. I thought you guys could see and hear me. I'm so embarrassed. Kindergarten teacher. Yes, I know I am the kindergarten teacher. Here we are for our show and tell, guys, and I was not doing it correctly. So learn from my mistakes. So anyway, this is a show where I interview a variety of experts about all sorts of things, everything from cemetery symbols to folklore, UFOs, forgotten history, basically anything that tickles my fancy. And as I said, I have a very ticklish fancy. In case you're new here, I am Tui Snider. I write books, I give talks, I do a lot of research, and I can usually actually run this show without so many glitches, but we shall see. Yes, Wayside Wade is saying show and tell. You know what, Wade? I should probably just call this show and tell, because when people ask me what it's like, I tell them it's basically show and tell for adults. And I'm not sure if I explained, I told you guys this before, but I actually used to have a coffee house, and every Thursday night was show and tell for adults. And I had all sorts of fun stuff. It was basically like an in-person pre-internet version of this show. So I hadn't really thought of it that way before. So anyway, my guest today is Greg Bishop. I'll be bringing him on here shortly. Now, he is a returning guest. I had him on for the April Fool's Day show. I know some of you guys were here for that. This show is going to be a little different. We're actually trying to have a topic. We'll start off talking about regional differences in cemeteries and grave markers, funeral rites, stuff like that. But we're we'll get into the intersection between ghost hunting and UFOs. So I'm really curious to talk about that and see where that takes us, because I really don't know. My big announcement for you guys is that I'm having a watch party, because that video, remember a couple months ago, I went down to Austin and they filmed me walking around some historic cemeteries, and I wasn't sure, how it went. Well, I'm going to be having a watch party this Sunday. There's a link in the description box below. And what is so cool is I used Watch Party for you don't have to download anything special. You can just use a browser to come to the watch party. And the thing about it is I got the best URL. It's randomly generated, and mine is Successful Writer Love is like the tag end of it. I thought that was a really great URL. Made me feel good. I'm keeping that one. So I made the room permanent. And so if you want to come, it'll be this Sunday, the 25th of July at 6 p.m. Central. That's 7 p.m. East Coast. That's 4 p.m. West Coast, 5 p.m. Mountain. I think I'm terrible at time zones. So yeah. And Wade's telling me that I had already shared my show and tell story. Okay, I wasn't sure if I had or not. I can't always remember what I've said versus what I've thought or dreamt. But if you guys could come, I've seen the rough cut of it, and they did such a great job of editing, because they're professionals, way better than I ever do with my stuff. So it was pretty neat to see. I had a couple of photos that I wanted to share with you guys this week. This one just is from, I saw in my time hop, and this is just right around the corner from where I live here in North Texas. And I just thought it was hilarious that a local church wanted to use a big inflatable alien to advertise their vacation Bible school. Thought thought that was funny, kind of cute. Who knows? Aliens for Jesus, all that. Really interesting. I kind of would have liked to ask them, or if they felt, I wonder if they felt anything ironic about that. I don't know. The other photo I wanted to show you was when I was up in Washington State. My sister, I was staying with her, and we would drive to get to her place. It's kind of a drive through the woods. And at random intervals, high, maybe 20 feet up in the trees, there were these signs that just said Mole Man on them. And it always made me think of Mothman, you know, and it kind of made me want to like prank call this guy and just ask him if he was related to the Mothman, or, you know, maybe he is. I really know. I never did call this guy. I just wondered what that was all about. It made me snicker a little bit. Now, here is, of course, every week I have a sponsor for the show. And this week's sponsor, I have this really horrendous electrical belt that supposedly would, you know, like most things you read about in the newspapers, especially in the 1800s, it claims to cure everything. It says it can be used on children, which just sounds like some horrible torture to me. I'm sure that I hate electric shocks. I don't know about you. I really, really hate getting them. So to me, this just sounds awful. If my parents had put me in this as a kid, I would have just told them I was feeling better so they would take it off. Of course, every week I have to say that the real supporters of my show are my Patreons, and that would be Bob, Connie, Ian, Scott, Ghost Cat, Jessica, Angel, Anne, Envy, Jay, Ken, Patty, Sarah, Julie, Margaret, Hugh, Mikhail, Naomi, Tim, Pete, Sarah, Rachel, and the other Tui. I just love that there's another Tui, no relation. And so there you are. Thanks, you guys. Really appreciate your support. So let me tell you a little bit about Greg, because I want to get him in here since he's had to listen to the whole beginning of the show twice. Oh, poor guy. So Greg Bishop, in case you don't know who he is the host over at Radio Misterioso. If you haven't been there, you need to go to radiomisterioso.com. I do have links to a lot of Greg's things down below, so check them out. He is an author, a speaker, a DJ. He's a weird music aficionado, a drone pilot, a private pilot, a paraglider pilot. The guy likes to fly. And as I said, are you still reading this? Because I could go on. He has a degree in art history. He knows about a lot of different subjects. So I'm going to bring him on here. And what I wanted to explain is that at the start of the show, we are going to talk mostly about cemeteries and funeral practices around the world. And I have a bunch of photos from places I saw when I went around the world. And then we're going to also, hopefully there will be time now that I've chatted so much, we are going to talk about the intersection between ghost hunting and UFOs and like where those two subjects intersect. So this should be interesting. So without any more ado, I am going to bring Greg in here. Woohoo! Hi, Greg. Are you having deja vu?
Bright? Yeah.
Oh, no.
Is it too bright behind me there? Okay.
Oh, there. Yeah. No, that looks good. Haha. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm just sitting out on the patio, looking over Los Angeles Harbor, actually.
Oh, that sounds so nice. Yeah, you showed me the view. It looks really, really pretty there. I think that is great. Well, yeah. So I hope, just feel free to go off any tangents as usual. And I have got a bunch of slides here to start off with, of course. That's what we do. I thought we'd start off because kind of what got us on this whole idea for the topics is I think you and I were chatting on Facebook, and you asked me if I knew about a certain Caribbean or Jamaican practice for their wakes. And you brought it up and sent me a link. And then we were like, oh, we could do a show about that. So why don't you tell us what you know about that? 9-9.
I was listening to a song by Prince Buster, who was a ska artist from Jamaica, obviously in the 1960s, and he had a song called "Hard Man for Dead," meaning a guy that you can't kill. But in the at that time, I think they still have it. But in the lyrics, they said people are waiting around for the 9th night to come. And 9 nights used to be, it's the 9th night of a funeral ceremony, would take 9 nights. Here, I'll read part of the cheat and partially read the wiki of it. 9 nights, also known as Dead Yard, is a
Dead
funerary
Yard.
tradition.
Ooh.
Yeah, good name for a band.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah, it's a funerary tradition practiced in the Caribbean, primarily Belize, Antigua, Grenada, Dominica, Jamaica, Guyana, Trinidad, and Haiti. It is an extended wake that lasts for several days with roots in African religious tradition. During this time, friends and family come together to the home of the deceased. They share their condolences and memories while singing hymns and eating food together. In the old days, the nights were calm and reserved for the most part, but that tradition has changed with the times. Today, these gatherings resemble parties much more than they resemble wakes, though this is not all true for all 9 nights. The other description I saw of a 9 night, on the 9th night after the person died, there'd be a big party, and anybody could come. Like people would kind of keep an ear out for if anybody had died, because that means there'd be a huge party, and anybody could come.
Yeah. Wow.
And there would be a contest where people would get up in front of everybody and basically do a memorial and celebrate the person and talk about what the kind of person they were and what made them so great. But on 9 night, anybody could get up and talk about the person, even if they didn't know them.
Oh, wow.
And whoever did the best presentation was crowned king or queen of 9 night.
I like that. Just get out there and BS about them, like,
Yes, exactly.
Man, that'd be kind of fun. It's like, wow, that is really neat. I did read, I read an article in The Guardian, I think it was, by a gal who, her parents were from Jamaica or somewhere in the Caribbean. Anyway, and so she was, she's basically an Englander, but her parents had immigrated, and so she would hear them talk about, we've got a 9. Oh, we're going to a 9. But it wasn't until her own grandmother died that she then experienced what it was like, the whole 9 night thing. And so I guess it's still that's a very long-winded way of saying it still goes on. But I love the whole BS aspect to it. That sounds really fun.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I had read. I don't know if it's further down on the wiki article. I have no idea, but the first thing I read was that. And I thought it was fascinating. I was like, that sounds like a great party. The closest I've been to something like that are a few people on my husband's side of the family have died since I've been with him. And I grew up on the West Coast, and there was one Jewish guy in my school. And so I didn't know much about Jewish funeral celebrations. I mean, I study graveyards, but like the actual funeral stuff I'm not as familiar with. And so they do a thing, sitting Shiva, someone out there, is that how you say? I can't remember. I should have looked this up now. This just reminded me of it now, though. They actually, you go and you hang out at the deceased person's house, and people are just coming and going and bringing food and reminiscing. And I think this goes on for about a week. It's not as rowdy as 9 nights, but it was still, I appreciated it. And this is one thing I think the article in The Guardian touches on. She said that she came to realize that the 9 night was actually a helpful thing, because she said sometimes people die and they're in the ground or wherever or cremated. And she goes, you haven't had a chance to even process the emotion. You haven't even worked up tears over it yet. You're still kind of like, so-and-so died? And having it go over the whole 9 nights, she said she saw how it was such a good thing for the living. It was such a good process for the living. I think being rowdy and moving your body, dancing, some people might think, oh, how disrespectful, how, that's not the way typical Christian memorials that I've been to, which are just, everyone's afraid to do anything, and then maybe you eat some food later. But I like I think
you hear about the idea of emotions getting stuck in your body. I've talked to people who give massages, and they're like, you work on a knot in someone's shoulder, and suddenly they burst out crying, or this or that. I've had weird like panic attacks all of a sudden when like it's supposed to be relaxing emotion, but it comes out. They're just like, let that out. So maybe this 9 night, helps people get stuff out. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, well, that's what all ritual is for, really. I mean, it's to help people process emotions. It's help them to process, confusing or scary or whatever input, which always happens during a transition, like a funeral or or even these other things like bar mitzvahs, any or quinceañera, just passages into different areas of life, and the 9 night is just another version of this, and this ritual is needed. It's needed. Otherwise, people have no way to our culture deals with death in this way, and this seems to be how we can move on, and suddenly you're not with somebody, so you don't know what you're supposed to do. And in the United States, most people, Christian people, they have a memorial service and possibly a dinner and a ceremony at the gravesite or whatever, and that's how we process it. And
it's very abbreviated. I feel like I think so. I think the public aspect of it is so abbreviated in our American culture that the real aspect of it ends up being very private, and then people don't know what to say to you. Because it's like, oh, well, he's at home with his grief. She's at home with her grief. I mean, I don't know. I think we should be more.
Yeah, it's better to be around people. I after my wife died, I talked to people incessantly for a while just to get all the feelings out. Yeah. And I had we did all that stuff except for we haven't done we haven't put our ashes in yet, but all the things we were, I had to sort of feel my own way. Along with it, because she's the only person that ever died that was really close to me. It was the first time. So, and she died at a place in the house in the bathroom, and I couldn't go in there for more than like 30 seconds for about 7 or 8 months. What I did was I had the entire bathroom remodeled.
Oh, wow.
And I didn't even know what I was doing at the time, but what I was doing was putting myself through a ritual to deal with that. And now when I go in there, it makes me happy to be in there. It is a joyful place. It makes me happy. It's kind of what we were planning to do with the bathroom anyway. But I just basically took all the ideas we were talking about and made them actually happen. And so that was my kind of ritualistic way of dealing with a death. And other people have other ways, but you have to do it. That's why there's ritual. That's why there's mythology. So I didn't realize it till after I was done. My friend said, "We know exactly why you did that." I didn't even think about it while I was doing it. After it was done, I said, "Of course." Yeah. The only thing I thought was, I can't be scared in this room because I have to live here. That's the only thing I was thinking, really. So
just you were guided toward it with, somehow you knew what to do instinctually. Yeah.
Apparently, I mean, and it really helped.
That is great. Well, think about it. I mean, I think there are a lot of rituals that we miss out on, or we feel our way through in our society. Like, have you noticed someone breaks up with someone and you see them and they've gotten their hair cut, and I'm instantly like, oh, are they still together? You just kind of know, like cutting your hair. A lot of times you just, here's someone.
Yeah, change your appearance. You have to do something,
Nicole says she needs a ritual to process this year. Oh,
yeah, I know. Everybody does. Yeah.
Maybe I kind of feel that way too. It's so weird. Okay, everyone, in the news, it's all like, oh yay, everything's back to normal. Well, everyone can go out, people can function much more normally, but there's a part of me that's sort of freaked out and went like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. I don't know how to do that anymore, which is strange. So I don't know. It's just been, I think there is something. I think we need a 9 night for the whole COVID thing somehow. We need a big party, a big blowout. That's interesting. Let's think about that.
Most people, they just, at this point, they're just like, I haven't seen so-and-so in over a year. And that their ritual is just freaking out when they see that person or their family or whatever. But it'd be nice if there was some ritualized activity around that kind of thing where you haven't seen somebody for a really long time. And I know there's probably those rituals, I'm sure, exist at other places in the world. They have to.
Yeah.
Oh, Wade said cutting hair is known to release emotions. That that makes sense. That might have something to do with chakras or chi or something like that, or symbolically,
Yeah, just
so
gonna
it's
wash that
taking a
man
part
out
of
of my
you.
hair. Yeah.
Yeah, it's taking part of you and getting rid of it. You can't do that with most parts of your body without some.
No, it's not like, hey, I'm gonna get rid of a lobe of my liver. Or, I only need one kidney. Yeah. You're right. So I think it is something with I don't feel normal. Yeah, I think we all have a sort of a collective grief. And okay, so on since I talk about cemeteries a lot, and I end up, I'm not interested in war. I ended up having to learn a lot about the Civil War just because I finally realized that our nation was going through collective grief. I mean, everyone was touched by that war. The loss of life was so big. So I feel like I'm sure there was collective grieving after the Spanish flu too. I mean, I just think and then you think, the Roaring 20s, maybe that was part of it. I don't know. But I feel like, we do have something. We're coming out of this. We need something for our post-COVID transition. Mm-hmm. Oh, your hair's down to your waist. Oh, Nicole.
Yeah. You're smart, too. You have your computer up above you. I've got mine below me, so you can see, like, my big chin and everything. Up my nose. Maybe I should put it there,
Yeah, this is I have a whole ergonomic setup for writing. And if I don't have it up and have my keyboard down, I get the old, my wrists. Like I said, I have this whole thing worked out so that I'm.
Yeah, I know you're sitting at your table for a long time and writing or whatever, like I do.
And I end up doing with my neck down, and then it's just not good.
I force myself to actually sit up completely straight with my shoulders straight over my butt and my spine straight.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because here's a really weird story, because you like weird stories and your fancy will be tickled.
Good.
We went to Japan, and my mom said, "What do you want to do while you're here?" And I said, "I want to go to a Zen temple." And she said, "Okay." So she arranged it, and we went and saw this guy who was the head of this 700 or 800-year-old Zen temple in Kyoto.
Wow.
And my mom knew him, so we got there, and he was like, "Oh, come on in." And one of the students was going away after meeting with him. He had one of those big hats on that looks like a mushroom.
Oh, okay,
So we walk in there, and him and his wife, we sit in this little room with the tatami mats, and he served us tea, like powdered green tea, matcha. Talked for a while. And we did this twice, maybe 3 years apart. The first time, all he did was tell my sister and I how lucky we were that we grew up in the United States, and that we grew up in a family that wasn't, didn't have too many problems, and didn't, we weren't ravenously poor or anything like that. And he said, "Well, you should be thankful for that." And I was like, "Yeah."
Okay, sure, yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely. My sister argued with him, which was really funny. It's like, you're arguing with a Zen priest.
That's kind of funny.
There's a wasp here.
Oh, yeah. Do what you got to do.
He went away. Went away.
Okay. Wow, that was good.
He looked like he wanted to drink some of my Topo Chico water. Anyway.
I love Topo Chico. Anyway.
I love that stuff. So we go.
Brought to you by Topo Chico product.
Yeah.
I do love it, though. Yeah, it's so good. I'll be drinking that afterwards. I make all sorts of little mocktails and cocktails with Topo Chico. It is so good. Anyway, all right, go ahead. Sorry.
Me too.
Interlude.
So the second time, we go see the guy, and the main message is, he said, "Americans slouch a lot. You should sit up straight. Sit up straight." He came over and showed me. He goes, "Put your shoulders here and keep your shoulders straight over your butt, and keep your and sort of put your shoulders back and sit like that." I have not that I had any back problems, but I don't have any back problems, and I'm almost convinced it's because that guy told me to sit up straight.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what? That is so cool. And it's interesting how just one person saying something to you at the right time, it really stuck. You took it to heart. But for me, it was, I took piano lessons growing up, and I had to sit up straight. And I just did it naturally. So as a teenager, I actually would get teased for having good posture. And so I would sitting there, all perfect posture, and I'd be like trying to like, I better slouch. I would try to slouch because otherwise people are like, what do you think? Why are you sitting like that? So, that was a weird thing. Luckily it didn't really stick. I tend to sit up straight.
Yeah. Well, I do that now just because of I think the reason it stuck is because I was in Japan in a 700 or 800-year-old Zen temple with a raked rock garden outside, talking to the head of the head priest of the Zen temple. A lot of stuff he said is probably stick.
Yeah, like context. Like your mom's probably like, I told you to sit up all the time, but it's like, hey, you hear it from from a Zen master. Okay, I'm gonna do whatever he says. Well, all right.
He was a really nice guy and really funny because that's how Zen people are. So.
Yeah, that's I was in Bali a couple of years ago, and it was full of traffic, and it was people, like there'd be like 5 people on a motorbike, and then a bunch of fruit and people balancing things on their head. I mean, it was just crazy, the traffic and all this and that. And there was absolutely no, and I think they are mostly Buddhist in Bali, if I'm not mistaken. And, judging by the amount of temples that were there. But the vibe to the whole country, like there'd be all this crazy traffic. Nobody was flipping each other off. No road rage. They were just all like, And I mentioned this to our driver, and he was like, well, what can you do? You've got the traffic, it's a pretty day, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, there's the advertisement for the benefit of being Zen. So
yeah, I mean, it was that way in Japan, although everybody, is kind of businesslike. Italy, you lived there, it's like that. People will like sort of yell each other, but most of the time,
anything.
Yeah. It's just kind of like, it's like nobody pays any attention. Somebody's just getting their emotion out. Who cares? Yeah. Nobody takes it personally.
When I lived in Belgium, I had to explain to them what road rage was. They will shout at each other. They might roll down the window, but they're just allowed to express some anger. I thought about this a lot. I think some of our problem in America is like maybe we're not allowed to express anger. So when it finally comes out, we go postal. But over there, they're just like, you problem, you idiot driver. And they're like, all right, I bet if you could monitor their heart rate and blood pressure, it's not even being affected. But in America, it's just like, and then, that's how it goes. Yeah. That's my infographic.
Yeah, I interviewed Whitley Strieber once on my show.
Whoops, sorry.
The author. It's okay. And
I love Whitley Strieber.
Yeah, we were talking about, he says, yes, I'm generally a very calm person and everything's okay. And I said, and I think either I said it before he did or I guessed it. He said, except in traffic.
Oh, really? Yeah, because he meditates a lot, like at 3 a.m. and, he's been meditating for years. That's hilarious. But traffic still gets to him. Well, he's American. So there. How funny. Yeah. All right. Well, I thought I would shift gears and maybe bring up a wonderful song by Bob Marley. Just ask, do anybody watching this, have they ever heard the song by Bob Marley and the Wailers, as you pointed out, Mr. Brown, or Who is Mr. Brown? I want to know if anyone, it's like a 10-second lag. I can't play it on the show because then I think I get copyright issues if there's over 30 seconds.
Really? I play songs at the end of my shows all the time, and I've never had a problem. But it's probably because hardly anybody listens, and I don't make money off it.
Well, so YouTube has even gotten mad at me. I use some of my own songs.
Okay.
I've used my own.
YouTube.
Oh, see, this is on YouTube, and I've used my own music. I was going to ask you how you got to play stuff because I played something at my own song as an intro, and I got a copyright notice saying, it's a song by Snider. I'm like, yeah, I know, and then I had to email them and try and prove that I was me to them. Oh, she's going, sing it here. Well, all right. I will. It's a song, and these are some of the lyrics from it. The song is like, they're going like, who is Mr. Brown? It's really spooky. I urge you guys to go look it up on YouTube after this is over. It's a hilarious song. I love it. And I had it on, when I first heard it, I wasn't really listening to the lyrics until one day I was like, Mr. Brown is a clown who rides around town in a coffin. I'm like, am I hearing that right?
Yeah, so, go look it up with lyrics. Type in Mr. Brown, Bob Marley, Mr. Brown lyrics. And there's a couple of them that actually have the lyrics scrolling up, so you can see what he's actually singing.
Yes, and so I clipped some of the lyrics. And the thing about this is, I'm a bit on a quest. I subscribe to different newspaper archives like newspaper.com and all these different ones. And I have access to different ones, free ones as well. And I have not been able to find any articles about this, but apparently I did read on a Jamaican's blog where they were saying that in the 50s, 60s, or early 70s, there were sightings of a Mr. Brown, and he would supposedly ride around into town in a 3-wheeled coffin with it had jack, what are they called?
Crows.
Jack crows, which are actually vultures. And at one point, people, I didn't know that, a jack crow. So I looked up a jack crow. That's their word for vulture or buzzard. And at one point, allegedly there was a parade going on. People sighted Mr. Brown coming around in his coffin, and supposedly these vultures would, like, rather than making vulture sounds, they would say, "Who is Mr. Brown?" or "Where's Mr. Brown?" And this coffin allegedly went up the steps of the courthouse, and it created a riot. And the police came and got statements from people who claimed they had seen this stuff. So I don't know. Is this a mass hallucination? I don't know. You take it away. What do you think about Mr. Brown?
Oh, me?
Yeah.
I read the same thing, not in that much detail, and it sounded like a total Fordian thing to me, where this strange contraption with this man on it in a coffin was riding around with the vultures. And I think that, I don't know, I did not read that it was Mr. Brown that was in the coffin, but the vultures was saying, "Where is Mr. Brown? Right. Who is Mr. Brown?"
Yeah, that's right.
So, and that was whatever that came from, that became the urban legend, and therefore turned into the song. And I think Lee Scratch Perry produced it.
Oh, okay.
And he may have helped write it, but anyway, he was involved with the production of the song as well. And this is just, there's a history of these kind of songs about death. It's so funny. I was watching with my girlfriend Serpent in the Rainbow the other night.
Oh,
Which has to do with somebody. Yeah, it's from the 80s. Toby Hooper directed it, I think.
It rings a bell.
It's based on Wade Davis's book. What the guy Bill Pullman, the actor, late actor, is in the film. He's going to Haiti.
Oh, yeah.
Haiti, I believe, to look for this drug that they give to people that make them seem like they're dead. Which they call zombification.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the voodoo priests there would use that to kill people and bind their souls or whatever it is to them. So the people would wake up from being dead and they would think, well, I was supposedly dead and now I'm not. So
I guess I have to do what you say.
Yeah, exactly. You're in it. It's like you'll never go back to being alive unless you do what I say, or you're not going to. And and then I hear, I know what we're coming up on our talk, and also that song by Prince Buster called "Hard Man for Dead."
Yeah, that sounds like a good one.
Did I describe that while the camera was already going, or am I repeating myself?
I don't remember now.
I can't remember.
I don't think so.
Anyway,
I think you did talk about it earlier. People can tell us.
Anyway, that theme seems to have been running around my life for the last few days before our talk. So I love it
when themes kind of
a synchronicity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, because we were describing Nine Night and where that came from. But the song is about a guy that's in a coffin and he wakes up.
Oh, wow.
And everybody that's taking him to the cemetery freaks out and drops the coffin and runs away.
Yeah, that would be pretty startling.
Like the procession leads to the cemetery. The man hollers, "Ho, don't you bury me." They drop the box and run. What a whole lot of fun. What a hard man for dead.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. Wow. It's funny because I tried looking up, getting back to Mr. Brown, I tried finding the origins of that, and just to find a newspaper clip, because they did say it. I thought there should be something in the newspaper, but apparently there aren't any Jamaican newspapers in the archive. So if anyone knows how to get access to any sort of Jamaican news archives, let me know. I would love to read that. I did read some interesting stories about duppies. That's what they call ghosts. One of the things they call ghosts in Jamaica is duppy. And there was a duppy house. There was this duppy named Kopi. So the ghost was named Kopi, who swore abundantly, and people would come and swarm this little shack where he lived. And this house was reporting all sorts of like poltergeist activities with this. I got kind of sidetracked with that. I'm like, okay, that's another thing. We'll stick that in my later file. So yeah, but I don't know. So it sounds like there's a lot of really juicy, interesting, strange things. And if this Mr. Brown thing is, we can find some documentation, I would love that, because have you really come across, whenever there's like a sighting of something, and you always hear people say, oh, mass hallucination. Have you really heard of any mass hallucinations? I never really have.
Yeah, but not associated with the things that people like to explain away UFOs and ghosts as.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? I mean, there's mass hallucinations and hysterias and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But they're extremely localized, and there's other people around that's like, what are you guys talking about? That's not there.
Oh, really?
So at least what I've read up on. And, a mass delusion might be more like what's going on. Like everybody is nuts on UFOs for a while, then everybody sees UFOs. It doesn't mean that they're not there, and doesn't mean they're making them up, and it doesn't mean any of that. It just means people are more apt to, one, notice things that are unusual, or two, mistake things that are normal for something that's unusual.
Yeah.
So, but, just using that mass hysteria or mass delusion as an excuse to explain away the paranormal, I think, is lazy, insidious, and kind of evil. And it actually demeans the quality of the testimony and sanity of the witness. So there's a lot of things that are mistaken.
Just come out and say it, and then you can figure it out. I just fess up.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world.
Why the rush to judgment and certainty? I think that's a problem with a lot of things that you need.
I think perfectionism is bad, and having to worry about your reputation is sad. But I guess I don't have to worry about mine. I'll just go ahead and say what. All right.
Exactly.
All right.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm moving along here. I thought I would share a few, because you got me thinking about some just differing customs around the world. And so, in 2019, Larry and I went around the world on a round the world cruise, and I highly recommend our world to people. We have a wonderful planet, and see as much of it as you can. It's I gotta say, also it's not a small world. I've discovered it's rather large, and especially when you're crossing the South Pacific. And I'm really in love. I fell in love with the South Pacific. Something about that ocean felt tangible, and it was really neat. But I don't want to get off the subject on that too much. But I did see a lot of times as I went around the world, every place we stopped, I looked for cats, and I looked for cemeteries, of course, and I wanted to see. I thought they would be so different. And there's a lot of yes and no. You can see that Christianity, you can see that the missionaries got everywhere, basically. The Portuguese pretty much got there first. And so there's a lot of Christianity. And then you can tell the settlers, and, not that there aren't some differences. And some of the kind of neat ones I found, here's one I found when we were in South America. Let's see, one place we went was, can we see that? Ushuaia. And I just put that there so you could see how it's spelled. And Ushuaia, I know, isn't it a great word? You just want to say it out loud. It is where you go if you're on your way to Antarctica. This is like your last stop shop, pick up your whatever it is you need to take, another scarf or whatever before you go to
Patagonia or something.
Yeah, it is. Patagonia, I really loved. I saw penguins there. Patagonia is so cool. But The Little Prince, if you look at the book, the cover for The Little Prince, Exupery, these mountains were based on the cover. Like he drew, he was here in Ushuaia when he wrote The Little Prince, or was inspired by it. Maybe he wasn't there. And the town was very sleepy. I mean, a dog sleeping in a crosswalk, just to show you. And then I went to the cemetery, of course, and here's the big thing I noticed. Their mausoleums throughout South America, in fact, not just Ushuaia, but they really want you to see inside, which is so different than here in America. You look in a mausoleum and you can't really see the coffin. I thought this was kind of a fluke when I first walked in. But no, here's another one. And something that was really interesting to me is that they have these big coffin. They really seem to want to have, like, show the hardware. Like, they polish the hardware. That seems to be a custom around there.
Maybe it shows respect.
Maybe. It kind of seemed a little bit of opulence and style, you know. And here, like this, I looked around for someone to talk to, a local, and I couldn't find anybody. So usually that's one thing. Anytime I go to a cemetery, I do look around to see if there's a desk, you know, or office, or caretakers are really great resources.
Yeah, those are great.
But I couldn't find anybody. So I just had to take pictures and go, wow. I mean, obviously they keep this polished and nice. Other mausoleums, they would have, you know, like cloth over it, but then you can see that they obviously come in and sweep every now and then, which I thought was interesting. This one, they really spiffed it up, and I think like they would have a thing if they liked a certain soccer team, they would have a thing about that. You know, it was really, really interesting. So I found that quite unusual. The other thing I found unique to South America was the aura fatal, which I saw a lot. In America, a lot of times it'll say on older tombstones, it'll say, you know, Joe Blow died age 48, 3 weeks, 5 days, you know, it'll really spell out how long they lived. In South America, they like to show you the exact hour they died. It doesn't say AM or PM, but it will just say the aura fatal, and then it will have a clock, different clocks showing you the time that the fatal hour for that person, the hour that they died. So here's another one. This person passed away at 4, you know, and I just thought that was so interesting that they did that. And I was really hoping to talk to somebody, and I really haven't. That's something, you know, I have so many things in my to research folder. So this is one of the many. So yeah, that was one of the, I don't know. It's interesting. Have you been to South America?
Never been to South America. That's someplace I haven't been. The furthest south I've been is Mexico City.
Oh yeah, Mexico City. I liked that show you did with Miguel.
Thank you.
I forgot though. Did you guys go to Xochimilco when you were there?
Yes,
you did. Yeah, you did. That's right. You did go to Xochimilco. Yeah, I loved that. I loved Xochimilco.
We went. We asked them to take us to the Island of the Dolls.
That's right. Yeah.
And we went to a fake Island of the Dolls, but it was still pretty good.
They have a fake Island of the Dolls?
Well, we got there, and the guy said, "Yeah, we can take you to the Island of the Dolls, and but it's going to take about 4 hours." And Miguel, luckily, you know, he lives there. He grew up there. He's Mexican. He was like, "What the hell? Why 4 hours?"
Yeah.
And then we figured out that where we'd gone was a place that wasn't either could have access to the place, or they were trying to give us a line so that they would take us. And as soon as we went in the tourist office, all the people that were trying to get us to give us their money stopped at the door and wouldn't go in because they didn't want to get in trouble.
Oh, geez.
So it's like, okay, there's something shady going on here.
Yeah, a little bit of preying on
as it is in many parts of the world around tourist areas. So Miguel said, well, screw this. Let's go to another place that's a lot smaller. You know, none of the tourists go there. It's just Mexicans go there. So we went there. No pressure from anybody, really. We asked them about the Island of the Dolls, and they said, well, we can't go to the main one because that's closed.
Oh.
But when I heard that, I was like, I think you probably don't have permission to go because you didn't pay off the right person. But he said, but we can go to another one, which is basically the same thing. And Miguel looked at me. It's like, well, do you really want to do this? And I said, damn straight. I want to see the fake Island of the Dolls. and it did not disappoint. I mean, it was a bunch of dolls tied to trees and branches, and it was extremely creepy looking. And the guy that took us there looked really nervous the whole time we were there. Like,
that really adds. Like he's like all looking over his shoulder.
It's like he said you have 5 minutos solamente. It's like you only have 5 minutes.
Right.
Like, you really need us to get out of here because apparently either you probably don't have permission to be here either.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, that kind of makes for a great story.
Yeah, well, we did run around on and there are all these floating islands. You can't tell they're floating, but they're probably not even floating anymore. They've been there for so long. But yeah, we were there for about 5 minutes, took a bunch of great pictures, and then he took us back. Oh, on the way there, we almost got robbed by pirates.
Whoa, that's scary. Like, what, did they come up in another boat? Like you're in your Social Milko boat?
No, we were the guy. There was like this teenage kid that was doing they take poles and they push you. They push the boat like a gondola, but it's just a big flat.
They're kind of wider.
Yeah, they're like huge flat boats with like 40 seats in them, so people can party on them.
Yeah.
And Miguel and I were the only people on the boat, so it was this big, long, like 40-foot boat.
Wow.
We were just sitting in these like seats at the front of the table.
And then did you have other boats come up and offer you like booze and stuff? Yeah, it was sort of fun. And then there's like mariachis and come a mariachi boat, music, and I loved it.
Yeah, they'll tie up to your boat and they'll play music or sell you drinks or whatever. We bought drinks and potato chips and all kinds of stuff. But he went down this like really narrow canal where he couldn't quite it just barely fit.
Really? Oh, you're just like you could have a Suez situation.
Well, I mean, there's like probably 5 feet on either side of us. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we're going along, and I see these 2 kids like come out, and they've got hoodies on, and they sit on a branch that's hanging over the canal a little bit, like just enough so that all they'd have to do is basically jump off the branch onto the boat.
Yikes!
And they're both looking at their phones. And one of them looks up at me, and he does not break eye contact. He just looks at me with like this very menacing look on his face. And we were a couple 100 feet away, and I thought, yikes. Okay, this isn't good. So I said, I very quietly took my watch off, took my ring, everything shoved it in my pocket, and just watched Miguel and talked to him while I was doing this very surreptitiously. In fact, when I saw them look away, I think hurriedly hide everything. So we get closer and closer, and the guy keeps staring and staring. It's just like this, staring at me and the guy, the kid rowing the boat, pushing the boat, he did not look happy. Ooh. And I thought, and Miguel's like 6.5 feet tall, and he was on the side where the guys were when we went by. So it's like, okay. So when we went by, I learned this a long time ago. I mean, if you live in a city or whatever, if somebody is threatening you, you have to think, you have to have in your heart that if they come anywhere near you, you will kill them. I mean, that should be, because that look will be on your face. So what I was thinking as we're going up to these people is like, you just try and get in this boat. There's 3 of us. One of us is twice as big as both of you. And we're going to kick the shit out of you. And sorry. And so we go by, and I'm looking at the guy, and when we're about almost even with him, maybe as we're going by, I purposely looked the other way, 180 degrees the other way, was basically as I am not watching you now. You just try and jump on this boat and attack us. And nothing happened.
Thank goodness. That's scary. You reminded me, there's a show on, I think.
Maybe Netflix. Nothing was going to happen, but the guy was really giving me the stink eye. He was giving me like the mad dog look. Yeah.
No, you were picking up on something for sure. I mean, it's just, you got to be aware of your gut when you're traveling. But there is a show on Netflix. That's okay. And it's called Scam City. Have you ever watched it?
No, I want to see it now.
I watched a few episodes because I can be a little naive, grew up in a small town, and I smile at everybody, and I really have to shift gears if I go to a big city, and especially if I'm walking by myself. If I'm with my husband, that helps quite a bit. But if I'm by myself, I'll just go buy a banana by myself or something. So this show was helpful. And what he does, he's this Irish guy, and he goes around to different parts of the world intending to get scammed. And he'd be like, I heard there's a lot of pickpocketers there. He has all these great button cameras and all this spy gear. He gets footage of it. And then he goes back and talks to them later and asks them why they scammed him, and he makes friends with him to the point where they'll be like, I saw you seem like an easy mark. It's a really fascinating show. He even had one where there was a lady trying to slip him a Mickey in his booze, and that one was done like in Argentina or something. And yeah, what's great is I never just seeing him get scammed would have been good enough for me. But it's the after when he goes back and he talks to them and they explain, what they were going to do. It's very eye opening. But I mean, one thing I learned from that show is like always count your change, because man, he gets ripped off all the time in cabs.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I know it's 5:00 now here. I do have a couple more things and I do want to get to the UFO thing. I can skip the moss.
Yeah.
I will talk about, here's a story I kind of thought would be fun to share, because this is one of the stranger burial practices. Oh, here Wade says, do the dominant dog stare to survive. Yeah, exactly. I think it's good to be able to cultivate. I'm a smiler. It's hard for me that's why I'm not so good at haggling either. My husband will just be like, just go away, like when he's haggling, because he can look like he doesn't care about it. It'd be like, I don't know, and walk away. Whereas I'm like, oh, yeah, charge me double. So, he goes, wow, that would be fun to watch, even though I'm not a fan of confrontation. Yeah, he does it. Are you talking about the Scam City show? Because when he confronts them, he does it in a way that he's got a good way with people, because he manages to somehow not offend them. It's very strange.
Yeah. Oh, right. You got me. What a great scam. Could you explain it to me?
Exactly. Exactly. He manages to do that. I get nervous for him, even though I'm like, okay, he obviously lived or the show wouldn't be on. But yeah, I'm sitting there like, ugh.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
I would offer them the money they were trying to scam me out of, just if they would explain what the scam was.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he does.
What do you think you're going to get out of me? Well, 400 mark. I was like, okay, I'll give you that if you just explain it to me.
Yeah, explain how this went. It is a fascinating show. I haven't seen it for a while. You just reminded me of it. All right, so geography lesson for everyone. Has anyone been to Rarotonga, which is really hard for me to say, Rarotonga? Heard of Rarotonga? I had never heard of Rarotonga before I was there, but they have a very unique burial practice that I wanted to share with the class today. I am, as much as I travel, I am terrible at geography, and the only way I seem to be able to learn it is to actually go there. So now that I've been there, now I know where Rarotonga is. It is in the Cook Islands, which are in the middle of the South Pacific, and which is a huge expanse. Oh my gosh, just compare it to the Pacific. You'll see what I'm talking about. It took us in our cruise ship, it took us, I think 2 weeks just to get to Easter Island. And on that 2 weeks, there were birds like hitchhiking. You'd be walking around the deck where you could walk around outside. There'd be tired birds would land. It'd be like, I'm just going to sit on the ship for a day. And we put water out for them. I saw one eating a croissant one day. Yeah, but I mean, these poor tired birds are like, just take me. So yeah, once you're there, then you pass Tahiti and you can go over to the Cook Islands. And so that's where we were. When we stepped off the ship, this guy was the friendliest guy ever. He proudly in his native garb, he blowing his conch shell, and he taught us how to say welcome and hi. And really, I wish I'd taken more photos of him, but it was hot as blazes. I wanted to go swimming. Now I do. I want to explain that Rarotonga is this little island, and there is one road that goes all the way around it, and there's no street lights. It's just one road. And what I did not realize is that they drive on the other side of the road there. And so we were crossing the street, and of course I looked the wrong way and stepped out. And just as Larry was pulling me back, this car like swerves, thankfully doesn't hit me. This guy pulls over, and he goes, "Get in!" And he had this really like thick accent, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to get arrested for jaywalking, right? I've got to explain this because I want to explain why the quality of my pictures are not as great as they could be. This is there is a point to this story. So the guy, he knew us. His name was Yvonne, and we knew him from the ship. And he was, my husband and I like to sing karaoke. So a lot of times we would sing karaoke at night. And when you're on a ship with the same people for 4 months, you really get to know everybody. And we had our whole karaoke crew, like about 12 of us who, all spoke different languages. I mean, out of the whole 1,000 people on the ship or whatever, there were like 12 Americans. So there was it was a cultural experience. So it was a blast. So this guy named Yvonne was on the ship with us. And I just want to explain his intensity. I think this picture shows it because he would sing a cappella because there was no Bulgarian karaoke songs. So he would just grab the mic and passionately sing karaoke. And here he is singing a love song. He found out it was this girl's birthday. So he's like, I sing love song to you. And here he is. Can you see his face? Oh, here we go. Just a second. That's him singing a love song. Just like, 2 feet from just, I mean, it's just intensely, everyone's just like, oh my God, laughing nervously. He doesn't let up. The song goes on for like 4 minutes, and she's just sitting there like, what is happening? This is the weirdest birthday ever. So that was the man who pulled over and goes, get in. So that, with that same intensity that you see on his face right there. So I hopped in the car. This was my view. He knew how to drive on that, side of the road. But he wouldn't stop. I was trying to tell him he didn't really speak English, and so I was trying to take pictures of things. What we did was we drove around, and anytime we found a beach, we would get out and swim, which I liked. But along the way, I started noticing in people's front yards, like here's a house, and here I was like, is that a mausoleum? But I couldn't get Yvonne to stop and let me see, right? So then here, another look. I'm like, that sure looks like a mausoleum. Don't those look like markers? How weird is that? And I'm like, what is going on here? I could swear that's a grave, but that's someone's house. That's not an official cemetery. And here's another, a shack. And I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's a monument. So the long and short of it is, in Rarotonga, I finally asked someone when we got out of the crazy car ride that we won. Yeah, and I asked very politely. I didn't know how to bring it up, and they were like, "Oh, are you trying to ask about how we bury our loved ones in the front yard?" I'm like, yeah." And she said, "We do that because we like to be close to our relatives, keep our loved ones close." She goes, "Sure, sometimes some of them get buried in the cemetery, but we like to keep our ancestors close." So I thought that
Makes
was really,
sense.
yeah. I didn't, that was really interesting. So if I ever get to go back to Rarotonga, I will try to talk to people more about it and actually get a closer look without, having to snap them by. And then here I just wanted to share this picture because the Maori people, you can see that's a person there, down there. This is on Rarotonga. They believe that this is where your soul goes when you die. I'm like, not bad. Oh, sorry. Here's a little person, and here's, that's the place they think that all the souls, when they leave the island, that's where they go. And I'm like, I think that's a very nice place to go. So, oh, Nicole had to go. Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you too. Yeah, thanks for coming, Nicole. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was fun. All right, and what else oh, here I am. So my advice is wear something, that's actually a swimsuit, and I could get all of that wet, but you could just swim anywhere you wanted, which I thought was pretty amazing. Okay, so now I know it's a little past, but maybe we could just squeeze in a little bit of ghost hunting and UFOs, because I feel like I've been doing a lot of the talking. I want to hear from you.
I was sitting here enthralled. I don't mind at all.
Oh, come on my show, dude, and I'm just going to do all the talking. But
I've done that on my show with people. Either I get excited, or they get boring, or they just like, no, please go, explain to me. And, it's just the way it is. It's just a conversation, Yeah,
and, you got me all excited about some of these things. So when I was preparing the slides, I was like, oh, and I remember that whole story with Yvonne, and I was like, I've got to tell that. That's just too fun. So
I'm glad you told it. It's a great story. Better than anything I could come up with around that subject.
Oh, here, wait, we got a request. I would like to hear about orbs, if we can. Any thoughts? Care to weigh in?
I was always kind of skeptical about what orbs might be. I always thought they might be dust or whatever. And as it turns out, most of the time they are.
Yeah.
But not always. There was a paper written for the Society of Scientific Exploration in one of their issues, I don't know, 20 years ago or something. Anyway, what it was called orbic photography or something like that. And 2 optical physicists from the University of Arizona said,
oh, wow,
let's get, 5 different cameras and set them up in different places with flashes and light sources off to the side and all these things. And let's take some pictures and see what comes up. And what they found was the cheaper the camera and the less lens coatings that the lenses had, the more orbs would show up because of light refraction in the lens. Because all lenses have coatings, but some lenses have coatings that are a lot better at others than at getting rid of glare.
I see.
And
Sure.
refracted light within the lens. And so what they said was, we got a bunch of these orbs, and they took pictures like of a giant kachina in a living room, because they thought, okay, if it's going to attract something, maybe it'll attract. They weren't complete dicks about it. They really wanted to know if they could reproduce this, and at least in that study they did. And at the end of the study, the end of the paper, they published 2 or 3 pictures where they said, here are some photographs of orbs that don't conform to any of our explanations. So it's
that's great. They're really doing. I respect that.
So
and I used to think. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. There is a very rich history of orbs or light balls associated with ghosts, UFOs, any kind of paranormal experience. There's a lot of balls of light in that literature and in the history of witness testimony. So, there's, as with anything, as I said before, you can give an explanation for something, but it doesn't explain everything. And it doesn't make it go away.
And it's good to really drill down.
I'm interested in seeing things that are, can explain something. But the thing is that most of the time in the paranormal, and especially UFOs, you get an explanation of something, or you get an explanation of how something could have happened, but it doesn't answer all the questions. And it almost never does. And I think that's built into the paranormal. It's not there to be figured out. It's there to make you notice and ask questions.
I agree on that. Now, speaking of orbs, I do have to say, I used to think, I kind of, my opinions on all sorts of things tend to vacillate. And when I first heard the whole orb thing, I was just like, oh, how stupid. And a lot of times when I think something, if I say it out loud, that's when I then have some sort of an encounter. And I'm like, oh, that's just ridiculous. It's all dust. But when I was researching for my book, Paranormal Texas, and I was spending time in mineral wells, I was in the Crazy Water Hotel, and I was with a paranormal group that I really respect, because there are some that are they're just running around. They're not doing anything. Then there are some who actually set up their equipment, and it takes them like an hour and a half. So I was staying out of their way, and I'm walking around. This is a cool old hotel in mineral wells, and it was actually built on top of a mineral well, this hotel. And
then. Yes, underground water and underground stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
But I mean, the town actually, the name fits. But there's like a picture of Will Rogers, people who'd stayed there over the year are still up. It's like been abandoned, Ronald Reagan, just all these the Three Stooges, Lawrence Welk. So I'm just walking around looking at all that stuff. Long story short, I see something about this big, that's glowing white, just go behind the bar, and I'm like, oh crap. Then I think to take a picture. I didn't get it. However, I do have a picture from the train depot up in Hugo, Oklahoma, where and I was there for, the overnight or ghost hunting thing. And I'm just walking around. I took a picture as this light kind of goes right by me. And so I actually did get one of those iPhone live pictures. You can hear me going, squealing, because I'm like, oh, I think I got it. And you can see it go. So I will, if you come next week, Wade, maybe I can get that to work. And it's so funny you mentioned that, because I don't know if this is going to work, but here's just one sort of anomalous thing that happened when we were at the mineral wells. Was they saw some, they were trying to, let's see, is it's going to play or not? Is that playing?
Yeah.
That was something that they saw going around me, which I didn't see. We had all just heard some tinking, it sounded like someone was throwing rocks around. And so this was just one little thing that they sent me after that. This was that same night. I didn't see that though, but that's the same night that I saw that weird light bulb. But anyway, so who knows? But so I know we really haven't said too much about ghosts and UFOs. So Where should we go with
Well,
that?
I don't know, but the ghost, the ghost hunting and UFOs thing, I think it attracts different kinds of people because of what they might be interested in. But they're basically the same kind of people. They're interested in something that's anomalous, that's a mystery, and they want to find out about it. And that can range all the way from, wow, this is really cool, I want to find out about it, to I want to be made famous by being the person that does this. And
the motivations, you're right.
Yeah, and I tend to think the more you're motivated towards ego in either of these things, the less useful information you're going to get. And it's just the way it is. And I have this phrase with my friends. We call it, is this the, and we heard Jacques Vallée said this once in a talk. He said something about, he was talking about a case, and it was not a very good case, or it was just so contaminated with noise that it just made it not a very good case to investigate. And he referred to it as, this is not the UFOs that we love. and so we've taken that phrase, and now we've, you'll look at a case, or the way somebody's treating it, or how they're presenting it. And we were saying, do they love the subject? Do they love the passion of it? Because if they don't, I automatically am less interested. I mean, I'd rather listen to somebody that sounds like a complete wacko.
Yeah, but they're passionate about it, and it's like rock the world.
Yeah, and then somebody who says, I know it all, and I'm going to explain it to you, or I've got the explanation, and this is all it is. And, a lot of the times it is, but a lot of times it's not, too. And if you have a love for the subject, or you say, I love for the UFO, or ghosts, or Bigfoot, or whatever
love for the Bigfoot. Yes.
Yes. I think your results will start to be useful, fruitful, and most important, they'll make you happy. I think a lot of that's another similarity, I think, with looking into the paranormal. If you're there and you're excited about it, and the phenomenon makes you happy or excited, or awakens something in you, and that you can keep that magic within you, I think your results will be, one, a lot better, and two, more people will be interested in them, because it's like hearing a song. If somebody writes a song and they have no passion in the song, who's going to care about the stupid song? But if they write a song and it came just straight out of their heart, and they don't even know where it came from, everybody notices that. And that's kind of how I feel about, paranormal investigation, UFO investigation.
Yeah.
If that investigation is, no matter how technical you are, if that investigation is coming from your heart, we're like, this is an interesting thing, this can tell us a lot about ourselves, and that on that level, it's a useful pursuit, then I think you'll be a lot more successful in a way that is meaningful to you. Well, it goes for anything in life, but I think especially with the paranormal, you have to be in love with whatever it is, because if you are, it comes. Yeah.
I was just saying, because as
you're saying, I'm repeating myself.
I was just thinking, like, the word that came to mind when you were saying this is like slick. Like, to me, if something's too slick, it's got too much CGI. Sure, I think Hollywood makes that mistake all the time. They're like, "What? Why didn't anyone come to see our film?" It's because there was no story. I would see a film someone cut on their laptop if it had a good story. Then I will watch.
Story is very important.
It could be sock puppets. I can get enthralled if the story is good. It doesn't have to be like, oh, it looks so real, but there was nothing to it. And like you say, the passion behind a song, I don't need the highest, slickest recording quality. Passion makes something enjoyable. But I've got to say, now you've got me also thinking about when we were talking about ghosts and UFOs and the intersection. I do have to say that when I give talks about haunted places, one of my questions is always, I ask people, who writes down or records in some manner their experiences immediately after? And oh my gosh, out of all the talks I've given, maybe 3 people have raised their hands, and that was always a shock. And a lot of them are, sometimes they are even like, well, I mean, it's all on tape. I'm like, that is not the same thing. It's just writing down.
No.
I write things down immediately, really crappily, notes. It's like writing down a dream, because you forget it. Really quickly afterwards, and I go back and I'm like, oh, there are things that I didn't even connect the dots until later. If I had not,
Your brain blocks out a lot of stuff in order to be able to remember something accurately, at least not accurately, but accurately so it's useful to you. And there's a lot of stuff in the paranormal that's not useful to you when in hindsight. So it just goes away. So you have to remember these things, and the individual experience of something, I think, I've come to think that's the most important part of something. Even if it can't be communicated to a researcher, the fact that the person can remember the richness of that experience is the important part of dealing with a witness. And the thing about photos too, now you got me all excited. If you have a photo of something, particularly I noticed this with UFOs, and I've asked actually people that have taken these pictures, or have, like Chris Bledsoe, who apparently has stuff going on all the time at his property.
Oh, yeah.
I said, Chris, is what you remember reflected in the photos? And he says, no, not at all. This is just kind of a shadow almost of what happened. And that's what I think the problem is with like people say, I want photographic evidence. The witness that took that photo, their memory is going to be whatever proves what that photo is in that photo, not what happened at the time they took the photo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because the photo is pulling all of their memories and everything to
it becomes
you have
their
to
memory.
believe me. Yeah, you have to believe me. Here is a photo. Now, 100 other things could have been going on. Then they totally forget them because everybody's saying what's in the photo and what does it prove. And, I finally got a picture, and it's like, you could have had a whole psychic experience, or some, you could have had a ghost fly through right before the UFO, but you'd forget all that because you're trying to, the photo is like the cap on the pyramid or whatever. It has to be, your entire story has to support that photo or video, whatever it is.
It's just a piece, but I just think they're just something you've got to write notes on. You just have to vomit it. It doesn't need to be pretty. It doesn't have to be just everything needs to come out right away. But I think a lot of people don't, because they're just chasing the adrenaline. At least they watch the ghost shows and then they do it. And then I think maybe it seems like maybe people who are interested in UFOs might be better at recording some because they want to prove that they're not crazy. Like I did see some, I don't know. It seems like a lot of people are already convinced.
I don't think write it down either. I mean, I have this idea. I've been pushing with UFO researchers to take drawing paper and colored pencils and things to witnesses, and don't ask them any questions. Just say, here's some stuff. Right, do whatever you need to with this to make sense of your experience or remember it, whatever you need to do, and I will come back in like 4 days or whatever. And if you want to talk about it, great. And if not, you don't have to. But I don't want you to tell me anything. I want you to experience it within yourself and interact with that memory.
Have that encounter with you, writing it down, because that is its own thing, and no one else is contaminating you then. That's one thing I really respected when I heard about Jimmy Carter's sighting. The first thing he did after he had it, he wrote it right down. He wrote up an account of it immediately. I'm like, good. Everyone should be doing more of that. Yeah,
he probably does that anyway with just about everything in his life because he has to remember. A few years ago, I started whenever I have an important conversation or something in hindsight, it's like, oh my God, we talked about a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah.
I have a notebook I will pull out and write down every single thing we talked about as best I can remember. Because next week, next year, 10 years, I won't remember what we said. And I don't do it to prove anything. I just do it because it's like, okay, this information is important to me, or this experience is important to me. I'll go for weeks or months without writing anything down. Then suddenly I'm writing a lot. So
yeah. I'm a writer. I mean, I love to write. I mean, always just like, but trying to organize what I write can be bad. It can be troublesome. But I'm constantly trying to get a better system. But I pester people all the time. I just feel like so much is lost.
It is.
Even when I've experienced something with someone and then I meet up with them a couple months later, I've actually had to go back, and I was so glad I wrote it in my diary because I was thinking, God, I'm losing it. But I had written, June 16th. Okay, I am not, it's crazy.
Yeah, and you're probably remembering stuff they might not even remember the experience.
It's freaky. That's what's so weird. That's why I'm like, did that even happen?
Well, a weird experience is often just falls off the table because your brain doesn't have any place to put it.
Yeah.
You can't hook it to anything else, so it just kind of, it goes away. It's not useful information to you afterwards.
Yeah.
Really.
And I know. And so, so we're talking about individuals keeping track of their experiences and all that. And, there's MUFON or whatever. I mean, at least with UFOs, there's some sort of centralized database, but it doesn't seem like with paranormal stuff, there's any I don't know if there can be. Maybe it just doesn't work, but you don't really call someone up and they log it into the gun. I don't know.
There is, but it's more for parapsychology research, not ghost hunting, not paranormal research, not the.
Yeah.
And the thing is that I don't think that a haunting or something like that is a reliable enough thing to investigate, like a psychic phenomenon or an area where, or a poltergeist or something like that. That is a very specific thing that happens at a very specific time. So it's easier to document. But like one person's ghost thing or all these.
It's not going to be a mass sighting the way it is. The sky's a pretty big place, so
yeah. And so these things they're not important in the context of our culture, so people don't really record them except as oral histories or in ghost books or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's a different thing too. I mean, ghosts are a human thing. They're a human experience, and so are UFOs. Yeah. But UFOs manifest as something that's technological. So we treat it completely differently, even though it's basically kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
And of course, Whitley's wife, Anne, said before she died, she said, I think a lot of this UFO stuff has to do with what we call death or the dead. And
I thought that was fascinating. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm seeing more and more how that connection is very important and relevant. Mm-hmm. I have a friend that's writing a book on it right now. He's up to like 800 pages.
Oh, wow.
About the connection with death and all kinds of things, all aspects of the paranormal, UFOs, Bigfoot,
sounds like
obviously ghosts. Yeah.
That sounds like a good book. All right. I realize I kept you very long. Because I botched the show. So I want to tell people if they have questions for you, they need to get them out now because time flies. I want to remind everybody that I've got the watch party on Sunday. If anybody's here still, go to see that. Of course, I need to tell people they need to go visit your websites, Radio Misterioso, and have a link to your shows on Monday. It's down in the description box, people. You can check it out to hear your eclectic taste in music. And before you go, I really wanted to give you a chance to talk about your books a bit and just tell us, because you mentioned your friend writing a book, what your projects are right now, what's happening with you.
Right now I'm working on something that has to do with what we were just talking about, how much a witness brings to an experience of the paranormal, what comes from the witness and what comes from outside. Is there a difference between the two? How does memory and perception and trauma and all that work? That's what I'm interested in right now. As for the books I've written, the first one was Wake Up Down There, which was a collection of stuff from the magazine I started with my friends Peter Stencil and Robert Larson in 1991. It went for almost 10 years. So that book is, 250 pages of just almost everything from our zine called The Excluded Middle. The next book was Project Beta, which is about the Paul Bennewitz story, where a UFO investigator was contacted and basically went over the edge because they just kept encouraging his paranoia in the furtherance of national security.
Gosh.
The third one was Weird California, that came out the next, I think Project Beta is 2005, Weird California is 2006. It's a series, the weird state. Series.
I like Weird Texas, so I haven't read.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's good.
Yeah, so I wrote about 75% of Weird California, just weird places and people and occurrences in California. Everything from weird properties where people have put the Bunny Museum was in there. Somebody's just all into bunnies. The Banana Museum was in there. And usually in people's houses.
All the stuff I like.
Yeah. All the way up to, what was the Battle of LA? What happened during it? Was it actually a UFO? Whatever. Mm-hmm. It Defies Language was the last book I wrote myself. And it's just a collection of stuff from
you have to sign it.
Hey, there you go. Yeah, mainly from UFO Mystic, which is a website, a blog I did with Nick Redfern for a while. But I added some new things to it, put some old things in there nobody had ever seen, like pieces of writing that I'd never published. And I
actually had a bunch of questions to ask you based on this, but that's for another day.
We'll do it on another day.
Exactly.
I couldn't think of a title for that book.
Oh yeah.
And Miguel, Romero, who did the cover, he said, I need a title because I got to get this cover together.
Yeah.
And so I took my it's amazing. It's the first book cover he did.
Oh really?
I took my introduction and I put it in an online cut up generator,
Mm-hmm.
which just basically jumbled everything I said. And then I put myself in some weird kind of trance state and I just started reading the gibberish, and I wrote down phrases that popped out of my mind, and one of them was "it defies language," and I thought that's perfect because it does, and plus it's a book about it.
Yeah.
I'm using language to describe something that defies language. So,
I know, that is great.
So
I like that whole thing. That is really nice. Yeah.
And then I wrote a book called I co-wrote a book called "A is for Adamski" with my friend Adam Gorightly.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. With my friend Adam Gorightly, about it's the subtitle's "The Golden Age of the UFO Contactees."
Oh,
and that's what it's about. It's about 1940s. Well, actually, we go back to the 30s
and stuff like that.
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
20s, 30s actually. But yeah, the biggest concentration of them were post Kenneth Arnold. So from the 30s or 40s up to almost the present, and there's oh god, I think there's like probably 30, 40 different entries in there. A lot of people
like a great book.
So we started doing research on them. So yeah.
Oh wow.
So that's all the books. And the Weird Music show is called Stop Hating Yourself. And it's on Mondays.
People. And I'll be there this coming Monday.
Yeah, Tui's going to co-host this Monday, and we're doing death, funeral, whatever songs.
Yeah.
Weird ones.
Yes, weird
ones,
have to be
trained. Yeah.
Not the obvious ones.
I'm not going to play Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. I'm not. He's great. I love him, but nothing.
I love him too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I've got a good list.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, that's fine. All right. Well, okay. Well, I've kept you a longer. Part of it was my fault. Thank you so much for putting up with the deja vu of having to hear me redo the first 10 minutes of the show. And thanks to everyone who came and watched. Make sure you check out all the links. I know you guys like to buy books. Check out Greg's books. There are some good ones.
Thank you.
I need to read. I kind of want to read the Paul Bennewitz one next, but I don't know. Maybe I'm not sure which one I'll read next. All right. So everybody, thanks again for coming, and I hope to see you at the watch party. And thank you, Greg, for being here. It was wonderful.
Thank you so much, everybody. Anytime. Bye.
Bye.